Several victims remain hospitalized, and we should note this marks the third mass shooting in Virginia in fewer than 2 weeks. Let's take you to the scene now with CNN's Brian Todd, who's live there for us. Brian, what are we learning about what happened?
Right, Boris, and to reiterate again, the new reporting from CNN that the shooter's been identified as Andre Bing. We got a statement from Walmart a short time ago. I'll read you part of it. Walmart, this is according to Scott Pope, Senior Director of Global Communications for Walmart, who sent CNN a statement saying the alleged shooter has been identified as Andre Bing. We can confirm that he was a Walmart associate. Andre's position with the company was overnight team lead, and he's been employed with us since 2010. They go on to say they are thankful for the first responders and continue to work with law enforcement in the case. We have been pressing Walmart all day on whether there were any disciplinary proceedings ever initiated against this employee or whether any other employees had complained about him. But what we have not gotten an answer from Walmart on that yet. But what we do have is an account from Brianna Tyler. She is an employee who earlier spoke to ABC News and was telling us that the shooter was a manager who she was told to, quote, look out for because there was always something going on with him, just having an issue with someone, end quote. She said that she had been gathered with her coworkers in a break room just before their shift started. She looked up and her manager opened the door. That's when they saw the shooter opening fire. She said she told ABC that he was not aiming at anyone specifically, that he didn't say anything while he was shooting, and that he looked directly at her but missed her head by an inch or two. But this was an account from an employee who says that she was told to look out for him. And again, we have pressed Walmart on that to see if anybody had complained about him, if there was anything that was said or enacted, any complaints filed about him to Walmart that maybe had not been acted upon. They have not responded to that yet, or questions about whether any disciplinary proceedings had ever been initiated. But we do have the name of the suspect, Andre Bing, and according to law enforcement sources, he killed 6 people inside the store and then turned the gun on himself. Boris, we were told by police that he used a pistol. We've been pressing them on whether other weapons were used. They say that, to their knowledge, they have no knowledge of other weapons. Boris.
Brian Todd, we appreciate you pressing for those answers for us. Thank you so much. Let's discuss further now with former FBI senior profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole and also with a CNN contributor, Jennifer Macia. She's a senior news writer at The Trace, a nonprofit outlet dedicated to covering gun violence. Mary Ellen, I wanted to start with you because law enforcement is just starting to share more details now. What stood out to you about this incident and hearing from that employee who was told to look out for that manager? What does that say to you?
Well, a couple of things really stand out. And the first one is that the shooter walked into the break area where he knew his employees were likely to be and started shooting. That certainly suggests planning, thinking ahead of time, how you're going to carry this out. And then secondly, with the employee saying that she had been forewarned that there were some issues about this individual, suggests that there might have been complaints formally filed with Walmart about this person and their behavior.
And Jennifer, when police laid out the timeline, I thought this was interesting. There were 4 minutes between the 911 call and police entering the store. That's a relatively fast response time. What does it tell you that the shooter in that short window was able to inflict that much damage with a pistol?
Well, he was apparently in a break room at close range, but the majority of gun violence and mass shootings are perpetrated with handguns. They are concealable. He was able to get that far because he didn't walk in with an AR-15. He walked in presumably with a handgun concealed under his clothes.
What are the questions at this moment from an investigative standpoint? Clearly motive, but the gunman turned the gun on himself, the police say. But the other thing that just strikes me is the gentleman we had at the top of the show and then the witness there speaking in almost matter-of-fact tones about this, as if it's something they talk about all the time.
Right. I mean, it is part of our culture and a part of people who are in their 20s and 30s. We don't call them generation lockdown for nothing. The 20-year-olds, like the woman looked, like the people in the room look like, the people that we're talking to, 20 and 30, those are people who are used to, that's a generation that's used to the idea of mass shootings in a way that I think even people in their 40s and 50s are not. Talk to anyone in their 20s and 30s, and they call themselves Generation Lockdown for a reason, and they're also in shock. So I think that their sort of description that may seem a little bit off-putting right now to us, it may be just that they haven't even processed what they were so close to. So the investigation, it's actually narrowing. Last night I was on through the evening. We didn't know what it was, and Walmarts are large, and you don't know what kind of shooter it is. It now appears that he's known. The reason why he was at that store is known. Maybe we don't know the triggering event. We know the weapon, and the victims are an isolated group, unfortunately. So the investigation will mostly, and you have a dead killer, so there's going to be no trial. So the investigation's mostly going to go to motive at that particular moment, what issues he was going through, and then also what kind of did supervisors know that he might be a danger? Did Walmart know? Those kinds of issues will be investigated as well.
And you watch them play out. And again, I can't find the right word for this. I get depressed every time you do one of these stories. And sometimes you think you do so many of them, you would just learn to blaze through it. I would just show you a graphic here. There are 20 mass shootings involving casualties of 5 or more people, 5 or more fatalities across the country. There have been 600 plus mass shootings so far in 2022, which is why this is Louise Lucas, the state senator, Carrie Cordero from Virginia, saying, save me the thoughts and prayers, we need to do more.
A lot of us didn't get much sleep last night, did not rest well, and will not rest well until we get a handle on this gun violence. For all the people who are saying that their hearts and prayers go out to these people, I don't want to hear any more about that until they get serious about gun violence prevention.
In this case, again, the Congress is not poised to do anything at the moment. But if in a case of a semi-assault weapon or AR-15, you have one conversation. This is someone who worked there walking in with a pistol. As you heard one of the witnesses saying, a manager she's been told to watch out for, so anger issues of some kind. Is there anything here from a legislative standpoint? Is there anything that can be done about this?
Well, the difficult policy issue is whether or not the country or individual states want to try to restrict access to weapons. From a law enforcement, Homeland Security perspective, this is mostly about trying to identify whether there are warning signs and having friends and family members bring those to law enforcement. So that's something that Virginia State Police, for example, want people to be able to bring individuals to them and bring warnings so that law enforcement potentially can have a better idea of how to prevent it. But, you know, at the Center for American Security, we did a survey of a focus group of cross-section of Americans to try to figure out what are people most afraid of. And mass shootings by far topped the list. And when we were looking at the timing of when could we actually do this survey, we thought, well, there was just we did it last summer, there was just the Buffalo shooting. And then we looked at, well, what if we would have waited a couple weeks and we would have run right up into Highland Park in Chicago? There is no good time because this happens constantly in America.
Happens constantly in America. And Juliette, to the idea that you mentioned, Carrie mentioned Buffalo, that was a supermarket. This is a Walmart, a big box store. Among the softer targets, if you will, especially in the holiday season, employees going in and out, people going in and out. I mean, in this case, somebody carrying a pistol, easy to conceal.
Yes, I mean, look, there is no society that you and I want to live in where you can be safe, right? Because what would that mean? It mean your experience of going to the store, your experience of walking down the street would be so fortified, it's not even worth it anymore. So the idea that we can defend our way into this solution is just, it's ridiculous at this stage. This is a Walmart. I don't know what kind of security they had at the door, but this was an inside threat. You're not going to be able to stop a manager who is, you know, hell-bent on wanting to kill employees. So we will continue to have a never-ending conversation about gun control, but I think Carrie and I are also reflecting on a sort of, you know, I think we have to admit it, that without that gun legislation, it is going to take a stepping up by community members, family members, about whether someone in their midst is a threat. They have got to consider the rest of the community and not wish it away. This is where we are now in the absence of control over gun and gun usage and responsible gun ownership at this stage.